Okay, good morning everyone and Hazak Baruch. Welcome to this beautiful Thursday morning as we are studying together Perashat Emor. Today's class is sponsored anonymously for the Refuah Shlema of all of Am Yisrael. Amen. My friends, Perashat Emor, we spoke yesterday, deals with the holidays, with the Hagim, and the holidays are all listed right here. Chapter 23, it goes through the holidays in order, beginning with Pesach. Of course, we know Passover for us is our first month as a people. That's when we became a nation. So it starts with Pesach, it goes on to the counting of the Omer, Shavuot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and finally Sukkot. Beautiful. Now, all of a sudden, the Torah writes something interesting about the laws. Go open to chapter 24, please. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. Tzav et bnei Israel, command the Jews, the Israelites, veikhu elecha shemen zayitzach. They shall bring to you pure olive oil. Katit lamaor, beaten for lighting. Leha'alot ner tamid, in order to kindle the lamp regularly. We know in the Bet HaMikdash, in the Mishkan as well, there was the menorah, the famous vessel called the menorah. There were a few vessels, there were a few kelim, pieces of furniture, if you will, inside the Mishkan. Okay, anyone know which? Let's go through them quickly. Maybe we have to jog our memory. Number one, we had inside the famous Mizbeach. Okay, there were two. There was the big one that they had outside, that they had a ramp going up onto it, that they brought the animals on, very big. And then, well, the one in the time of King Solomon was very big. The time of Moshe Rabbeinu, it wasn't so big. Then there was another Mizbeach inside, Mizbeach HaZahav, the golden Mizbeach, small, size of a little, stand. And they did on that one the Ketoret. Remember the daily Ketoret? Okay. Now, what else did they have besides the Mizbeach? We had the Menorah, the famous Menorah. We lit every single day. We also had the Shulchan, the table. We also had the Holy Ark, the Aron HaKodesh, that was inside the Holy of Holies. Okay. We also had a Kiyor, a basin that we washed our hands from when we came in every day, the Kohanim, to wash the hands. So there were a few different kelim in the Bet HaMikdash. Now, all of a sudden, the Torah tells us that make sure to collect from the Jews oil, pure oil, to light the menorah. What in the world is that doing here? What does that do with anything? Right? Just shows up literally in the middle of nothing right here. Make sure that you get oil. Michutz laparochet ha'edut. And that menorah should be right outside the tent of meeting. Be'ohel moed, right? The arochato aron me'erev ad boker. Every evening he lights them till morning. Hokat olam dorotechem. This is a time. This is something that you should do forever. Ala menorah teora yarochet hanerot lifnei Adonai tamid. Something that he should do every day. Light the candles. Okay, and then velakahta solit ve'afita ota shetem esrei halot. You should also make sure that you take flour, choice flour, and bake 12 loaves and put them on the shulchan. Put them on the table, okay? And that's why, by the way, according to the Kabbalah, when you do Kiddush on Friday night, you're supposed to have 7 candles lit and 12 pieces of bread, because you are trying to mirror what happened in the Bet HaMikdash. So you have 7 candles and 12 pieces of bread. Again, that is not required by halakha. The halakha, our custom is we do different customs, but the Sfaradic custom at least is to do two candles, Zachor and Shamor minimum. That's what we try to do, 2. And we also have 2 loaves of bread, Lehim Mishneh. Okay, 2 and 2 we do. But some do 12 and 12, 7 and 12. Okay, different customs. Some light candles for how many kids they have in their family. Okay. But either way, it goes on and says that you should have 12 loaves of bread and you should put them on the table, stack them up, 6 and 6. Okay, and every Sabbath you should switch out those 12 breads. So we know that in the Bet HaMikdash there were 24 families that served, and every family had a week that they worked, 1 week, and then they took a 23-week vacation and they come back the next week. So they worked 2 weeks a year around. And the family that was working that week, they would bring with them the loaves. They would bake them at home and they would come with the bread ready, 12 loaves of bread ready. And it was a whole changing of the guard ceremony. Every Shabbat, if you were in the Bet HaMikdash, you would witness this. It was a beautiful thing to see. I've never seen it either, don't worry. But I imagine it was a beautiful thing to see. Where you had over there the table, and the Gemara describes it that on one side you had the family that was leaving with their hands ready to catch the bread. And on the other side, the family that was coming in, and they would take their new bread and they would push it in through the table, and it would push out the old bread, and the other family catching their bread on the other side. And that's when it commenced. That's how their week began. And every week, the new family came with their bread. So from Sabbath to Sabbath, says the Pasuk, B'yom HaShabbat, Ya'archenu Fnei Adonai Tamid. You should arrange them every Shabbat in front of Hashem. Beautiful. What in the world is this doing here? What does it have to do with anything? Light the menorah and make sure you have the loaves of bread in the shulchan. What does it have to do? This is the question, of course, of many commentaries. First and foremost, Rashi says, weren't we already told earlier about lighting the menorah? Remember Parashat Tetzaveh? The one parasha that Moshe's name is not mentioned in? Maybe you remember that one? That was Aharon's parasha. It begins with Ve'ata tetzaveh b'nei Yisrael ve'ikchu elecha shemen zayit zach. Over there we read the very same words. In the end of Shemot, Parashat Tetzaveh, God says to Moshe, let them bring to you oil. Okay? If you want to open up back in chapter 27, Pasuk 20. So, it was already said over there. So Rashi tries to answer and say, no, over there, it wasn't really written. It was just written because that's where it fell out in the order of things. But really, it was preparing you for now. Ve'ata sofcha letzavot et bnei Yisrael. God was telling Moshe, later on, you're going to need to command the Jews about the oil, and later on is right here. Right here in Perashat Emor. The Or HaHayim says, okay, but still, why did Hashem choose this as the place to be where He's going to teach us about lighting the candle? What does it have to do? The Ramban explained, practically, that they just ran out of oil right here. You know, when the Jews were when they collected for the building of the Mishkan, they collected materials, remember? And everyone donated. And then then Moshe's like, all right, we have enough, everyone stop. We don't need any more money. Which was the first and last time ever in a campaign that they announced, we have enough, we don't need any more money. Okay? But Moshe said this, we don't need any more. So they stopped bringing. And then they ran out of oil eventually. This is now sometime later, we don't know how long after, but whatever it is, they ran out of oil. And says the Ramban, that's why Moshe is reiterating over here. Hashem tells Moshe, let them bring oil, because they needed more, so he was telling him to bring more. Again, Or HaHayim says, En re'ayah ledvarav, you have no proof for this assertion, my friend. And therefore the Or HaHayim gives two answers. Now before his two answers, I want to share with you the answer of the Rokeyah. Rokeyah says something gorgeous. Look what he says. We just gave above all the list of the holidays. And they are Pesach, the Omer, Shavuot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. Are those the only holidays we have in the year? From the Torah, yes. But we know that we also have two more holidays, Midrabanan. Two more holidays from the rabbis. And everything is alluded to in the Torah. So right here, when the Torah lists the Deoraita holidays, it then goes on, and a new chapter, it's a new topic, but Hashem alludes to the rabbinical holidays. And He says, number one, make sure you light the candles. Which holiday is that? It's the holiday of Hanukkah. And God is alluding right after the holiday of Sukkot will come, right here, menorah, make sure you light the candles. And it's not just that you're going to light the candles, but the wording is so beautiful. Leha'alot ner tamid. It's going to be something that you will do forever. A forever mitzvah. Ledorotechem. There will always be candles lit in a Jewish home. That's a beautiful promise. And that is the mitzvah of Chanukah. That's the holiday of Chanukah. So the Rokeyah says that's what it's doing here. It's a holiday. Chanukah. And then, one more holiday. What's the next holiday? The holiday of Purim. Purim is also right after Hanukkah. So that's the next one that comes in the year. So it's amazing that they all go in order. And the pasuk right after, it talks about the oil, it talks about the shulchan. The shulchan is the bread, and the Rokeyah says that the bread alludes to the feast that you have on Purim. There is a Hatam Sofer, who elaborates, why do you specifically pick the menorah to represent Purim? What's special about the menorah? Just because you put bread, because you eat, and you eat on Purim, I guess, but you eat on every holiday. What's special about the menorah that's the allusion to the holiday of Purim? He turns us to the Masechet Megillah. Masechet Megillah, page 12, it tells us, and maybe we spoke about this back in Vayikra, that the Megillah tells us that when Vashti refused to come down to the party, Ahasuerus was so upset that he made a emergency meeting with his 7 advisors, and their names were Karshena Shetar Admata Tarshish Meres Marsena Memuchan Shiv'at. Right? He calls the 7 advisors. The Gemara says that these names, they're actually alluding to a conversation that took place in the heavens between God and the angels. And the angels stood up and they said, Ribono shel olam, Master of the universe, you're going to really wipe out the Jews right now with this psycho Haman, this maniac? You want to wipe out the Jews? I mean, the Jews have such a good track record. And they start listing 7 things that we did. Karshena, Shetar, Admata, Tarshish. So the 7 things are actually praises that the angels gave to God about us. So as an example, Karshena. What is Karshena? They said to God, Klum hekribu karim b'nei shana. The word Karshena is alluding to Karim, Karshena, 1-year-old cows. Did any other nation bring to you 1-year-old cows as sacrifices every day? Only the Jews do it. Wow. Tarshish, what does that hint to? Shimshu, Bigdei Kohen Gadol, Shenemar Bahim Tarshish Shoham V'Yasheveh. Tarshish is one of the stones that were on the breastplate. Does any other nation have Kohanim Gedolim like the Jewish people? Meres, and then another thing, mixing. Does any nation mix blood like the Jews for you? The Jews do so much for you. They do so much for you. So how could you, God, come and destroy them? Okay. Well, anyways, what was the last one? Memuchan. Memuchan, he says, how does that allude to sacrifices? Memuchan is from the word lehachid. Does any nation prepare bread on the table like the Jews? Only the Jews prepare bread. And therefore, God, please have mercy. So says the Khatam Sofer. Look at this. The word Memuchan alludes to the bread, to the Shulchan. And Memuchan was the hero of the story. Right? Memuchan's the guy at the end that he came to Ahasuerus. Hey, by the way, Haman wanted to hang the Jews, the Mordechai on it. And then he said, oh yeah, hang him. So Memuchan is a good guy. Right? Memuchan's one of the saviors. Memuchan. So, right? That is one opinion at least. So, he says over here, that's why the table of all things is what represents the story of Purim. The story of Purim came about through Memuchan and through also the table. So that's the Rokeyah's answer. Why we go right after the holidays into the lighting of the candles and to the bread? Because it's talking about, alluding to Hanukkah and Purim. So if you want to know where are those holidays hinted to in the Torah, they're right here. Beautiful. But I want to share with you Ora Hayim's answers. We gave 3 just now, Rashi, Ramban, Rokeyah. I want to give to you Ora Hayim. Ora Hayim gives 2 answers. And then we're done for today. Okay? Now answer number 1. Why is the oil listed right here? Right after the holidays. And he goes over here deep into the Kabbalah. He says, Letzat shetzivah mitzvat shevi'iyot. Because God just finished instructing mitzvot associated with the number 7. The number 7, you should know, is a big number in Judaism. The famous Maharal explains this concept in depth. That 6 is this world. There's the number 6. There's 6 directions. North, south, east, west, up and down. There's, right? 6 sides to a cube. 6 is this world. It's physical. 7 is man adjusting with the physical. It's man who has to now use the physical world. Man plus the 6 is 7. So that's why when man comes into the world, we have Shabbat. Shabbat is on the 7th day, right? Man, something that now allows Shabbat to happen, holiness, right? So 7 is a big number. And then 8 is the number of miracles. Whenever you find a miracle, it's 8. Hanukkah was 8 days long, right? The Brit Milah is on the 8th day. But over here, God is commanding on the 7s. Look at this. Pesach, Shiv'a Yamim. Pesach, 7 days. Sukkot is 7 days. The shaking the species, there's first of all 7 species. There's one etrog, 1 lulav, 2 aravot, and then 3 hadassim. So 7 species. And we shake those for 7 days. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are 7. How? They're in the 7th month. So we're filled with 7s here. And again, it's a big number. We'll spend maybe one day of class just on 7. Lucky number 7, okay? 7's a lucky number for a reason. On the dice, it's the best number, the best odds. So 7 is a number of this world and man in this world. Engaged is the word I'm looking for, in this world. Gam HaShulhan, and therefore Torah comes and says the 2 other mitzvot that have to do with 7. Number 1, the menorah. The menorah has 7 branches. And then the shulhan. The shulhan is also 7. How is the table 7? The table has how many loaves? 12. But how are the 12 stacked? They're 6 and 6. So says the Or HaHaim. So you have 6 plus the table that puts it all together. Hi mashlemet sheva. It's like, again, the person who completes the 7. The person puts all the 6 together. So it's like the 6 sides of a Rubik's Cube, and then the ball in the middle. The ball in the middle that everything revolves around is the 7th, right? So the menorah, the shulhan, you have the 6 breads, and then the shulhan brings it all together. The shulhan itself is number 7. We also find the Omer with 7 weeks, right? The Shemitah is a cycle of 7. Gam mitzvat Shabbat, we also have Shabbat here, which is 7, the 7 days of the week. So 7 is a very, very physical number. It's man in this world. Therefore, and he doesn't really elaborate more than this. This is what he says. But you should know that's the number 7. And that's why answer number 1, we're bringing you here the oil, because there were 7 branches on the menorah, and then the bread, because even bread has to do with 7. Odev Shar, number 2. Shenitkaven besmichut parashat menorah. The reason the Torah here is putting together semichut. Semichut means to juxtapose, okay? The reason it's connecting to the holiday of Sukkah, that was the last holiday that we just read about. And then right after it talks about the menorah. Al derech ma she'amru, it's based on what the Gemara says. Why is it called over here? Right? Let's read the pasuk 1 second. Pasuk says, where should the menorah be? Mihutz la parochet ha'edut. It is outside, the location is outside the parochet of testimony. Why is it described in this way? It's outside the parochet of testimony. Just say outside the parochet. It's outside of the curtain. Why is it called the curtain? The curtain of testimony. It never calls it that. Gemara answers, Masechet Shabbat says, it answers with a question. It answers the question with a question. The rhetorical question, Gemara wants to know, why did Aharon need to light the oil in the Beit HaMikdash for? Why did we have a candle inside? The famous line. Did he really need its light? Did Aharon really need the light of the candle? Come on. They didn't need the light. Halo kol 40 shana, for 40 years. Hayu b'midbar. They were walking in the wilderness. Lo alchu ela le'oro. How were they walking in the desert for 40 years? They were surrounded by clouds. It was pitch black. How did they get light? They got light from the Shekhinah, from Hashem. So if they got light for 40 years from the Shekhinah, why did they need all of a sudden light inside the Beit HaMikdash? God could have given their light over there as well. And the answer is He did. They didn't need the light of the menorah to see physically. Rather, the reason it was lit, right? Le'ela edut leba'e olam. The purpose of the menorah is not to provide light, but to provide testimony for all mankind that the Shekhinah dwells among the Jewish people. That's why it's called, put it outside the parochet edut. What does edut mean? Testimony. What was the testimony? The testimony was that when you saw the menorah, you knew God is with us. Why? What was special about the menorah that told you that? What gave it away that Hashem loves us so much? The answer is because every single day of the year, the Kohen would light the menorah, and all 6 would go out in the morning. The 7th would stay till the next day, without fail. Something special. He didn't use more oil in that cup. He didn't put a special type of oil. He didn't use different wicks. Every single cup had the same amount of oil, and yet somehow this 7th cup lit for 24 hours. Miracle of miracles. There was almost, you could say, the miracle of Hanukkah happened every day before Hanukkah happened. The candles lasted all day, even way before the miracle happened. Wow. Okay? And that was the testimony. The Jews would see this candle. It was proof that Hashem was with us. And that's why it's here. That's why it's here. The mitzvah of menorah, this is what God did with His genius. Right after telling us about Sukkot, He tells us about the menorah. Why? Ki basukot hoshavti. Right after telling us about the holiday of Sukkot. And we learn from Sukkah one thing's for sure. Ki Yisrael etzadanene kavod lo haya lahem ora shemesh. We had clouds, there was no sun, there was no light. So we went with the light of God. And therefore, we tell you right after that, also the menorah, we didn't need its light. Rather, the menorah was also from the light of God. So why do we light it? Because proof that Hashem resides with the Jewish people. And if we could just connect this to what we said before from the Rokeyah, it wasn't only, my friends, the light of the menorah that we lit in the temple. It was also the Chanukah, the holiday of Chanukah, is proof for the rest of time that Hashem is with the Jewish people. As someone once said beautifully, the miracle is not that the oil lasted for 8 days in Chanukah. The miracle is that the oil lasted 2,000 years. The fact that we still have Jews today, that there are still people lighting. The fact that you look around and there's Jews parading for truth, for Emet, for Israel, for Hashem, for Mizvot, for Judaism, that this house is with mezuzot on them, that there's people lighting a Chanukiah in their windows every year in the middle of the winter. The fact that we still do that today, that is edut, my friends. That's the testimony. You want to know that Hashem is with us? It's not that the oil lasted till nighttime, a few extra hours. It's the fact that the Jews are still here. How do you take one nation, take a sheep among 70 wolves, and the sheep is still alive? How? Impossible. Impossible. You look at a map, Israel is surrounded by enemies from every single side. Unfortunately, today we have a lot more than we thought. Who do we turn to? How are we still here? They tried to wipe us. Bechol dor vador. Am Yisrael, on all sides, they just need to send bomb. We're done. Israel's a very young country. The state of Israel, the state of the Jewish people. And we have top intelligence. This is all from Hashem. There's no other way to explain it. Kadosh Baruch Hu blessed Am Yisrael, and He is protecting us. Who was it? Rav the Ya'abetz. Rav Yaakov Emden says, if you want to see a miracle today, you want to see a miracle, forget the splitting of the sea, forget man falling from the heavens, I'll show you a bigger miracle. Go find a Jew. That's a miracle. There's a Jew somewhere in the world, he's alive, that we didn't get wiped out, that we didn't get assimilated. That's a miracle. That's impossible. Odds, impossible. Impossible odds that we're still here. Tried killing us once and twice, and somehow we're here. That's the edut, my friends. Edut, the menorah is testimony. The fact that we are here celebrating the holidays is testimony. So when you're keeping Shabbat tomorrow night, my friends, realize that you are actually holding a candle. You are passing on the torch of the longest, oldest current tradition that exists. The oldest traditions. You are part of that miracle. And you are passing it on to your kids. You are passing it on to your children. When you do a Brit Milah for your child, you are doing something that was done for 3,000, 500 years. 3,500 and counting. right? 3,700 years maybe, even more, excuse me. You're doing something that was done father to son, uninterrupted. And you're doing that, you're continuing that tradition. That's something to be proud of, my friends. Judaism is something that we must carry and wear with pride because we are part of it. And we are blessed to be part of that religion. And it's testimony. And it's a miracle. There's no other way to explain it. The fact that Am Yisrael is chai v'kayam, the fact that the Jewish people are not just alive, but we are thriving. We are in the news every day. What is a little country smaller than New Jersey? What is a little country doing in the news every day? Leave us alone. There's countries that are killing thousands of people without excuses. And nobody cares. Israel, war crimes. And by the way, we are performing better than any other country performed during their wars. But somehow, UN, everyone, who cares what they say anymore, right? It doesn't even matter. It's a joke. But Am Yisrael Chai. And Hashem will always be there to protect us. That's the promise that He made. Ki lo teshachach mepi zaro. We should be zochet together to welcome the Geula b'mera b'yameinu. Amen. We'll stop over here, everybody. Have a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.